Let's go to Goose Bay on line number 1 and say good morning to Jim Learning. Good morning, Mr. Learning. You're on the air, sir.
Good morning. How are you this morning, Patty?
Very well, thank you. How about you?
Good, thanks.
Big day for Labradorians in celebrating the 40th anniversary of their unification under one flag. And, of course, more conversations about independence up in the big land coming up today, too. So a lot of interesting times.
Yeah, I don't know if it's all that much of an independence thing, though, but it certainly is good to see that kind of celebration go around. Anyway, I just want to mention that we're having a meeting tonight on reevaluating governance in Labrador Monday at 7 p.m. at the Friendship Center here in Happy Valley, Goose Bay.
Yes, sir. And did you hear my comment this morning about I think that there's probably very little attention given to the potential hazards or risks associated with independence? And do you have any comments on my own comments there?
No, I missed that. I was busy with other things this morning. What was it briefly?
Well, what I said is that the conversation regarding independence, I think, stems from feeling like you've been treated like second-class citizens or maltreated to begin with. And when independence, those concepts are born, I think very seldom do they take on meaningful conversation regarding the pitfalls, the hurdles, the hazards, the downside of that proposed independence, whether it be Labrador, Quebec, or otherwise. Do you think that's a fair comment, sir?
Oh, sure, if you're just chucking it around like that. But I think for us, it's not so much independence as the lopsided way we have between Newfoundland and Labrador. You have 500 plus thousand people who vote and run your political system. We have 27, 28,000, 29 at best. So it's a kind of a lopsided thing. We come in last and we never really have a say. So for us, it's about looking after our own house and saying something meaningful to ourselves. Pitfalls, we saw over the last 500 years that the island as a government never worked out as a country because of those pitfalls you talk about. Mm-hmm. But and I think we in Labrador, just me thinking this, deserve a chance at that. We have resources, we have no population to speak of, but if we begin to build resources and grow our industries, then we will grow our population. I think that's one and the same. But no, as for the pitfalls, I wouldn't let that stop me, slow me down, because pitfalls are pitfalls, and you get out of bed in the morning, you're facing the world, you never know what's going to happen, but you get out. Right,
but you might not know what's going to happen, but you do know it's a bad idea to jump in the slough boy or walk in front of a bus. So should we consider the real, obvious and distinct possibilities of some negative things that could happen to Labrador based on the quest for independence? That's all I'm getting at. Not that there's not a risk in life, because you're right, there absolutely are inherent risks, but understanding them and giving the opportunity to mitigate them or avoid them is also a pragmatic approach.
Yes, I hear that, and I think what we're intending to do here initially is to get that conversation started. I mean, It could be the pitfalls are there, insurmountable. This is entirely up to the people who come to the meetings, who take part in the discussion, who examine it. That's not say from me or any other individual to say that, but let's look at it, is what we're saying. After all these years, we feel we haven't taken responsibility, or at least I feel we haven't.
And, responsibility is one thing, and it's the ability to have some more impact at the decision table, whether it be cabinet or in the House of Assembly or a combination of both. And I guess, can that ever be made better? Because there's always going to be the perception that some parts of the island and the big land are left behind. And that whether that be you're down in Rose Blanche or Garria Bay and don't think you've got your just rewards from the provincial government, or if you're Happy Valley, Goose Bay or St. Anthony, or even just outside of St. John's, I think we're always going to have that omnipresent in politics, aren't we?
We are, but I think given the contribution that Labrador makes with its resources is a slightly different thing than maybe your districts around the island. I'm not belittling them. I wouldn't dare. That's just not a good thing to do. But given the resources we have that we put into this, people kind of look sideways at you when you say, well, aren't you looking after your own resources, your own territory? Do you have not enough say in that? Should you have more say in that? The answer to me, of course, is yes, we should. But the political answer is no, we shouldn't. We should be considered the same as Dildo or Rose Blanche or anywhere else.
Why should you have, and I ask this as a sincere question, I'm not being saucy, why should you have more say in the distribution of wealth coming from Labrador than I do?
Well, because we've never been given that opportunity, and we've never taken that opportunity. We are a separate entity, as you can see. If you look at the Straits of Belle Isle, there's Labrador there, there's Quebec there, and there's Newfoundland on the other side. Labradorians have sat in the middle and never said boo to anybody, really, with regard to taking responsibility for their territory. And I think it's time we did that. It's just what you do. When you grow up, you move away. And we don't have to move away. We're already away. We just have to decide to take the responsibility for our territory. Our leadership around the territory are reluctant to say that because they get their hands slapped each time they do. The combined councils tried to say it one time, and they were threatened with all the monies being withdrawn from that for that activity, so they shut up and went away. But I think a group of us who can't be touched like this need to start this conversation, and it needs to roll. I mean, I hear what you're saying about pitfalls. It's up to us to examine those pitfalls.
I totally agree, but shouldn't it also be up to those of us living on the island? Because we do indeed depend on a variety of levels on Labrador as well. And it's not to convince you to stay or go. It's just so we have a well-rounded, well-represented conversation about what actually the investment has been in Labrador, certainly based on population and your contribution to the Treasury. Whether or not we'd all be better off if Labrador stayed or went. Should we not all play an active role? Because this is not a pick and size role. These are all people who are living in the one same province with hopefully similar and hopefully the same goals. Should we not all play an active role? Like, I don't begrudge anything in Labrador. Why wouldn't I be able to chime in on the issue?
Oh, sure, you can chime in. That's not a problem. But no, I think Labrador is Labrador and Newfoundland is Newfoundland. And yes, but the political reality is it's too lopsided, in my view. It's just too lopsided. And it would be nice to say if we could get along, that would work. But it's not working. I mean, we've been insulted many times over about the ownership thing, and you've attempted to sell us 4 times. So I mean, I really think that's not an issue for us. That's one of our pitfalls, really, is that we just sit around and wait to be sold. Goodness gracious, your last statement by Dunderdale was that Quebec realize we own Labrador? You know, I mean, that's an awful thing to hear for us. That just curls our nose hairs. Like,
yeah, I think that's a terrible choice of words, there's no doubt about it. You talk about the geographical rift. So you look at a map, you see quite clearly that the island portion of the province is not connected physically to Labrador. Would some of those, what I consider symbolic fixes, whether or not they have economic benefit remains to be seen and debated, but just like something like the fixed link, does that all of a sudden make things better? To show people in Labrador that there's a willingness to be connected emotionally, not that we can ever physically be connected other with a bridge or a tunnel or whatever. Are those kinds of things actually that important, or is it the economic benefit stemming from it potentially more important than the symbolism?
No, I think you're partly right there about the emotional thing is not there as far as I'm concerned because of that ownership type thing. It's like it very definitely isn't us and them the them being us are not looking after. We're not holding up our end here by taking responsibility for our territory. As a people in a territory, the people in that territory, not just a district, the whole territory, have a responsibility, I think, to respond to that. And not be looking outside of our borders for somebody to be looking after us. Colonialism ended from Britain almost all those years ago for that very reason. I mean, New France was given up by France for the same reason, that these people had to look after themselves. End of story. We're across the water. We're away from you. We're not connected there. We're connected by, indifference of accepting the Privy Council in 1927 and the border dispute. So it's time for us now, I think, to stand up and account for who we are. We are people, nothing against Newfoundland, God, sweetest people on the planet. But it's about us taking responsibility for our territory, growing the resources to build our infrastructure.
And it's absolutely your right, and the conversations, hopefully they can include the public airwaves where we can better understand your point of view regarding past, I guess, either transgressions, lack of investment, or support emotionally, mentally, physically, and otherwise. And anything you want to discuss on that front, Mr. Learning, you're always welcome on the show, and I enjoyed the conversations.
Thank you very much.